We're back on Nittany Game Week. I like to think of this guy as a modern media man, and more importantly, he's a Pennsylvania guy. This is how our guest describes himself. He quit punting footballs in the NFL so he can entertain folks. This week's guest is Plum High School graduate Pat McAfee. And Pat, thanks for joining us. This is our impact interview, okay? So last week, Penn State plays at Iowa. Their punter, Tory Taylor, dropping punts inside the 5 like Phil Mickelson's short game in his prime. Iowa fans chanting MVP, wearing shirts that say, punting is winning. How do you react when a punter is the hero?
Thank you so much for having me. And obviously, I am honored to be associated with something Penn State. Guys obviously chose not to have me coming out of high school.
I knew you were going to start with that right off the get-go. But go ahead.
I was getting these handwritten letters from Tom Bradley about becoming a Penn State Nittany Lion. My dream was going to come true, and then obviously you guys went with Kevin Kelly, who I have a lot of respect for, but it is an honor to be here. Thank you guys for having me. Tory Taylor is a superstar, but I think what you see out of the Tory Taylor experience in Iowa, punting is winning and people loving it, is a smart football base. I think Iowa knows that they're going to have to win games of complementary football. They're going to have to win with field position. Their defense is a greedy one. They're going to get the ball. The offense is okay, but they can do, but field position and that defense eating, and what Tory Taylor is able to do every single game is beautiful. And let's not get it twisted. Blake Gillikin, Penn State punter, what he just did for the Saints this past weekend, punting is winning. And I think anybody with a high football IQ knows that, especially if you have a great defense like Iowa has. It was a real shame to see you guys lose that game, but it was awesome to see the Aussie get chanted out there, obviously.
So, Pat, in college, you did all three, punting, field goals, and kickoffs in college, like Penn State's Jordan Stout is doing this year and doing very well. How hard is that in terms of technique and the mental side in that preparation?
You know, it's fascinating because you don't really see anybody in the NFL do it successfully, because at the NFL level, you have to be elite at a craft. And it's not easy to be elite at two different swings. It's two very different swings. And I think it's like a baseball swing versus a golf swing. You know, they kind of both involve the arms and rotation and everything, but it's just two different styles. And punting and kicking is very much like that. And kicking off is also very different. So I think what Stout's able to accomplish alongside a couple others in the college game doing all three is incredibly cool, because there for a while after I graduated, they had specialists. They would have somebody who kicks short field goals, somebody who kicks long field goals, somebody that kicks off, somebody that punts pooches, somebody that punts the long ball. And I just think whenever you do that, you kind of get into the groove of some athletic people whenever they might need to find a rhythm. And if Stout's anything like I am, I felt like coming out of college, whenever I would just go to punting, I felt like I wasn't able to get in the rhythm of a game. And with how young he is, with how talented he is, leg talent he is, I'm sure he's just as fine as I was when I was that age. When he gets older, it'll probably catch up with him a little bit. But I think whenever you have that responsibility of having to do all three, you're both on the defensive side of the ball, the offensive side of the ball, and you're kicking off. That's a massive amount of respect and honor that the team has bestowed upon you. And getting an opportunity to do that is something sweet. And I'm sure Stout is enjoying the hell out of that.
Hey, Pat, you and I have a lot of the same friends, okay, Western Pennsylvania. And everyone knows that Friday nights in that place is special. So I want to take you back to perhaps the most famous play of your career. Among the folklore of WPAL football, there's a play you made on a botched hold against Fox Chapel that resulted in a 2-point conversion. Coach Bill Romito said, "This is our immaculate reception. If there's room at the Pittsburgh airport, Pat should get a statue next to Franco Harris and George Washington." Can you take us through that play?
I'll tell you what, Coach. I thought as soon as I pulled that off that the offers would just start rolling. You know,
I saw it on film.
Yeah, so I think might have been my first game ever, actually. And, you know, I grew up in Pittsburgh, and football is just a way of life. So although I played soccer growing up, and I had, and this is no exaggeration, I think I had like 50 times the amount of schools looking at me for soccer than I did for football. Because, you know, Bill Romito, you know, Plum, we weren't like a powerhouse football-wise. We weren't just creating D1, but our soccer team was good. And I had focused my entire life on soccer. My dad had remortgaged the house like 5 times so I could travel around and play soccer. I went to Europe a bunch of times to play soccer in high school. I really thought that was going to be my path to success, hopefully in the future. And I don't want to say we kind of leveraged against it, but we kind of did. And when I started kicking balls, and the first time I kicked, I think was at the Penn State kicking camp. That was the first time I really ever went to a kicking camp or did anything kicking, because that was before I even started my career on the high school football team, which was my junior year, when Ramito just said, hey, just show up on Fridays. Don't need you to practice. Just show up on Fridays. So I was fully focused on soccer. But growing up in Pittsburgh, everybody played football. I was the all-time quarterback in my neighborhood because I could throw it from one telephone pole to the other telephone pole at the youngest age. I knew how to tackle people. I knew how to run with the ball. I was pretty well versed and a fan of football, but although I focused on soccer. So I think that was the first game, and the long snapper sends it over the holder on the extra point. I think it goes back to like maybe the 20, the 30. I don't remember it exactly. To be honest, until you just mentioned it, I completely forgot this even happened. I grabbed it, and it was just backyard football. It was awesome. I swung somebody off. I ran. I got in the end zone, 2 point. Then I had to kick off. And then on the bus ride back, I got to ride the bus back, even though I got dropped off in a car because I came from a soccer game that particular night. I got to ride the bus back team. And I was talking to Ramito. I was like, just give me the ball. Like, can we get the ball? Can I get the ball a little bit more? Like, can we run some fakes? And he was scared to death to get me hurt because of the soccer dreams and aspirations. But I do love the fact that you left no stone unturned and you watched that play.
Well, yeah, but you zigzag through. You zigzag through a lot of different people to make that score. You're not making as well great a play as it was, because it was a heck of a play you made. You showed some great athleticism on that play.
I mean, I appreciate that. That means a lot. I don't really remember it. I wish we had film of it. I think somebody had film of it at one point. But yeah, I just felt good because, I don't know, I'm a big team guy. I'm a big team guy. So I enjoy, no matter what I'm a part of, I enjoy us winning. Like when I graduated college and I was no longer the kicker and the punter and the kickoff guy, I was just punting. You go right to the defensive side of the ball. If there's a blowout, the game's out of the punters. There's nothing I can do in the second half of the game where we're down like 28. The punter literally can do nothing, taking the control completely out of your hands. In soccer, I used to be the guy that people would look to whenever we're down, and then kicking, at least you get a chance in there. So when I just focus on punting, like how much I love team happiness and team morale is my favorite thing. And I think that's what got me through my transition of being just a punter and then scoring in that particular game. Like I appreciated, I think, the respect I might have earned from my teammates on the football team that night, but also the enjoyment that came from that, from the entire team, is like so cool. So those moments, it's always great to revisit, at least for a minute or two,
Hey, Pat, I want to let you know that those handwritten notes from Tom, you've got my cell number, you've got my email address. Go ahead and send them my way. I'm going to use that for something a little bit later on. But look, after an incredible NFL career, you transitioned into being a modern media man. A lot of successful media ventures, not easy to do to make that transition. I want to know how you've been able to anticipate the trends in this shifting media landscape, right? And connect with so many people who not just watch for a little while, but they're soaking up and digesting everything you're doing.
Thank you for acknowledging that. That's very cool. And I'm very appreciative to have this post-football career. And I don't know if Tom actually wrote those notes or not, now that I'm thinking about it. That had to be assistant. That was an assistant, wasn't it?
No, I didn't.
No, we didn't have 18
have
recruiting guys like they
back
do
then.
now.
I mean, they had my picture. I mean, I was on the Nittany Lions in some of those. And this was you guys were the only football team that was recruiting me, because I think you guys were the only ones that knew I existed. Nobody else even knew I existed.
I will match the handwriting. I will match the handwriting for you.
That's
Pat,
awesome.
So in Indianapolis, you punted and kicked off, but you also held for the place kicker, and I know you kind of missed that element. Was there every time you thought about maybe sabotaging the place kicker with some shaky holes so you could take that job too? Did that ever cross your mind?
Okay, so there's a couple of things there. I'll get to the media part after retiring, but with Adam Vinatieri, never, because I was lucky to be a part of greatness. And to be honest, I became a much better place kicker being like the backup place kicker with Adam Vinatieri, watching him work and his diligence and his technical and everything he focuses on. By the end of my career, I was actually a much better place kicker, obviously, than I was coming out of college. So it was always my mindset that I am here to help Adam Vinatieri. If Adam Vinatieri misses, everybody knows it's going to be my fault. It's not Adam Vinatieri's fault. And I'm going to be a professional. There's a funny situation here that does tie back to Penn State. After And Adam Vinatieri did not play for like the last half of that season because he had a hip surgery. We had Matt Stover. We ended up going to the Super Bowl. I had money for the first time in my life. I took that off season after we lost to Drew Brees and his dumb baby, and I traveled the world. I mean, I went everywhere. I spent money everywhere. I was having the time of my life. I wasn't thinking about football at all. I had no idea if I was ever going to have this amount of money, this amount of freedom, because it's your first time having freedom in the off season, you know? So, because in college, around high school, working all year round, it was my first time with freedom. I'm going to go do this. I spent all my money. I mean, I spent all my money. Blast. I lived. I didn't even think about football. I came back like 35 pounds overweight. Everybody knew it for OTAs. And that first day, I had to hold for some kickers. And it was our backup long snapper. Tammy was going to be snapping. And Bill Polian said, hey, we come outside and hold because we don't know how Vinatieri's rehab's going. We might have to have another kicker or whatever. And I hadn't caught a football in 3-4 months at that point. I mean, I was a bad pro. I was being a bad pro at that time. It was unprofessional as hell. And I go out there to hold, and there was a kicker. That was a righty that I held for. He did okay, a little bit of a breezy day. Then there was a lefty I had to hold for, and it was Kevin Kelly. And it was at that moment I remembered everything that had happened with Penn State. And it was at that moment I realized I'm a pretty good guy because I was legitimately trying for him. I'd never held for a lefty before. That's on the complete opposite side. I feel like I was trying to give him the best lean, give him some advice. And he had the idea that for a span of like 2.5, 3 years, I hated that man because I thought I was going to Penn State and he got the scholarship over me. Watching him kick was a thing of beauty. He had a great stroke. I was holding for him. So I would never sabotage a kicker because I have the utmost love for him. But when Kevin Kelly worked for the Colts, it did cross my mind. I did feel like a bad guy. And I did hold for him. He didn't get the job, but he kicked very well for us, and he was an incredibly cool guy. So I was appreciative of that. And whenever it comes to me retiring and getting into the media game, when I was playing my last couple of years, I had a podcast. I did a couple stand-up comedy tours where I would rent the theaters and sell the tickets myself. And I had my foundation going. And I was finding like real fulfillment outside of football. And I was having some success when it came to comedy and podcasting and the world of the internet. And I kind of viewed it as the modern day gold rush right now, which is the digital age, the internet. Everybody's trying to stake claim of real estate on the internet. It felt like all of the signs in the universe were pointing for me to kind of go chase that dream and chase fulfillment as opposed to just a paycheck in the NFL. I had made a Pro Bowl my last year. I assume I will still be able to kick it if I really wanted to right now, if everything was to come crashing down. But I'm incredibly thankful for the NFL. I was very lucky to represent the Indianapolis Colts in the NFL. I'll forever be a fan, but it just felt like the right time, and it felt like everything was kind of clicking off the field for me before I retired, and I think that's just kind of carried through, if that makes any sense to me catching trends or getting – I've just been very lucky throughout most of my career, and this digital space is a pretty similar thing.
You know, Pat, you've done a lot of things athletically in your career, and one of them was setting the world record for a blindfolded field goal, kicking in the Super Bowl and playing a game of professional baseball despite having no baseball experience. What do you say to all the naysayers who don't think that kickers are real athletes?
Well, those naysayers are idiots. You know that. And I would beat the brakes 99% of people in most sports, and not professionals. I'm just talking about the average person. If we were to go play hoops, I feel very good about how I am. I couldn't beat AQ Shipley in basketball because that spark plug is immovable. You know, that'd be immovable. But I think at this point in my life, early, I would fight that narrative a lot because I felt like I had to prove myself for the good and the punters. And I think that narrative is kind of changing. But that is why on my Twitter and on the internet, I highlight things that are good for the brand of kicking and punting, because for far too long, all I've ever heard about was the terrible things that happened with kickers and punters. And I will agree completely that kickers and punters in the totem pole of football have the least tough job when you're comparing it to offensive linemen, linebackers. I understand completely. It's a much different position than everybody else on the field. It's much different action. It's more, everything else is kind of reactionary. And this, you're like golf. You kind of got to sit and wait for your opportunity. So it's a much different thing than every other position in football. And I think some people get a little bit too comfortable speaking like they're NFL offensive linemen when really they were just high school athletes that would get dog walked by all NFL punters and kickers and athleticism. So I'm at that stage now where I used to get more upset with people. Now I think most people, whether it is the baseball thing where I had no business being out there for the Washington Wild things, or I've wrestled now and I've done some fakes and I've made some tackles. I don't think I get questioned as much as I used to, but a lot of punters and kickers deserve a lot more credit when it comes to athleticism than they get given. And I think that's because of some preconceived notions that came from back in the day when kickers didn't really care about how they looked or acted. They blew ACLs on their celebrating and they didn't try to tackle. Now there's only 32 jobs. People are making millions of dollars and people are much more honed in at the punter and kicking position to try to get peak performance and try to be as best as they can be as an athlete, as a kicker, as a punter, because there's only 32 jobs and they'd like to continue to do that and make a living for a long time. So I think it's slowly changing, but there's some stooges out there, I guess, Coach.
All right, Pat, we're going to go around the horn one more time. One question from each of us here, and I'm going to go back to Plum for a moment. Our show's executive producer, unbeknownst to you, Ed Albert, was in gym class with you back in your days as a Mustang. So my question is, what were you like in high school, and what advice would you give yourself knowing what you know now about Pat McAfee?
I don't know, high school was interesting. What was his name?
Ed Albert.
What's up, Ed? Hope life is good. I don't remember it. I feel like I have a pretty good memory, and I wish I would, because I assume Ed Albert is an incredibly talented person.
He is, of course.
I put a lot of pressure on myself in high school to become successful. When I was asked what I wanted to be when I was growing up, I only would say I want to be rich. And that sounds so shallow, and it sounds so ridiculous. But honestly, that's all I really wanted to become, because I'd already chat about my dad, the sacrifices he made. He was a truck driver, and then he got into the wood business, and my mom was a secretary. And I think a lot of us, especially in Western Pennsylvania, I don't know about all of Pennsylvania, have had those moments where your mom was at Hills and something, maybe the card wouldn't go through and you have to put something on layaway, and you can just feel that anxious anxiety from your mom. And I don't know, I just always wanted to be rich. That's all I didn't know how. I thought it might've been soccer. Then when I started kicking footballs and I was kicking 65, 70-yard field goals in high school, it was like, maybe this is the right business plan, or maybe I want to do stand-up comedy because I know they made money. Maybe I want to be a professional wrestler because I know they made money. Maybe I want to be a show host because I know they made money. So I always had these dreams and aspirations to do all these things that just made money. And I think in doing so, I didn't necessarily enjoy a lot of things as I should have as a high schooler. I think obviously there was the classic parties and friendships and things like that. But I put so much pressure on myself and did so much athletically. I think I would have told myself to relax, take it easy, calm down. It's all going to work out. And you don't have to be a douchebag all the time. I think that's what I would have told myself. Obviously hindsight's 2020, it all worked out. But I talked to a lot of my friends that I work with now that went to high school with me as well and are from the same area as me. And I feel loyal to a lot of people in Plum still. And I feel an obligation, to represent Plum, especially because of all the stuff that has potentially come out of there. But they had much different experiences than I did. And I think it's all because I was so kind of self-emerged on how do I make it? How do I do what I want to do? How do I focus on this? And then once I started opening up a little bit and the accolades came, there was maybe some moments where I bought into them a little bit and became a little bit more of a douche because I didn't think I was getting recognized as much as I should have. So I think I would just told me, like, just relax, calm down. It's all going to work out, but keep going and keep like that chip on your shoulder and pettiness, but those are wild times. Those are wild times back in the day.
That's good advice, though. Hey, Pat, my wife is from Pittsburgh, and she's raised all of our kids and both of our dogs even to love the Steelers. Now, recently, you made some news because you and Pittsburgh dad seem to be openly courting Aaron Rodgers to come to Steelers. So let's just say Big Ben retires after this year, and you were going to host Aaron Rodgers on a college-style recruiting weekend in Pittsburgh. What's on your itinerary, and what are you feeding them?
So, great question. We're not tampering, by the way. All right, listen, there's been some tampering accusations thrown out towards me and towards Aaron. We're just asking the questions. He's giving the answers. That's all that's happening there. But I used to vacation in Pittsburgh in my off season. Like after my rookie year, I obviously traveled the world, but the one stop that always happened would be back in Pittsburgh. And then after my second year, And after my third year, there was a lockout. I spent the entire lockout in Pittsburgh, basically living in a hotel back there. There's only one place you got to go. You take down the South Side. All right, well, first you go to the casino and you lose money in there. And that's basically just tipping the city of Pittsburgh. First, okay, you're going in there. You're basically just giving whatever money you want to give. Like the person on the corner, you're giving 15% so that the Pittsburgh gods will grace you with a great weekend. So first you stop by the casino, obviously lose the money. You're tipping it to Pittsburgh, though, to take care of you for later. And you go over to South Side. We obviously stop by Mario's, maybe swing by Jimmy's. Then we head over, to the North Shore, back where the casino's at. And a little look-see over there at PNC Park, where the worst baseball team of all time plays. But then look over at Heinz Field and say, look at this place. This lot here is filled with Yinzers day out, ready for Steelers football. This whole city will fall in love with you, be obsessed with you. And I think you'll be able to feel that through the weekend, taking trips to the South Side, North Shore, obviously tipping the casino. And the Yinzers that we will meet on our voyage will do enough of a sales job. I won't have to do anything.
Hey, Pat, this is an impact interview. So we want to ask you about your impact on society. You have done a ton of philanthropic work, chief among them assistance for military families. Also, you rebuilt Plum's weight room too. Can you talk about your foundation and why you want to be so positively involved in making your mark, helping so many people?
I appreciate that question, Coach, because when I retired, I was like chasing fulfillment. And I didn't feel much fulfillment from walking on the field and kicking it when the offense more. I did at one point because I was able to utilize the paychecks to take care of my family, take care of my friends, hit the reset button, hopefully get everybody out of debt and kind of move forward. But I stopped feeling fulfillment because of the things you just mentioned, the foundation and getting a chance to work around the city of Indianapolis and watching older players kind of devote their time to the community and kind of become one with the community. And I just think that's what it's all about, not helping anybody else. And I've been very fortunate that I've had the opportunity to do a lot of things to help out. I've been incredibly lucky to get some of the opportunities to meet some of the people who actually changed the world in our military and front lines and people that are running foundations, building houses for people and getting a chance to hopefully donate to them and continue to donate to them. And I don't know, I like to consider our show every day a mental vacation because we're just a bunch of idiots that get on microphones and talk about sports. And hopefully while watching it, you can disappear from the real world for a little bit. But that's what it's all about, is just kind of making people not know the situation, not the situation that they're in, smile, laugh, get away. And if you can help the military, which I've been able to do, and their families with scholarships to children of military families, or right now we're even launching a canine cancer fund to help families battle against their dogs having to battle against cancer, because one of my dogs has been going through it, and I realized how expensive it was and how if I was growing up, my family able to afford it. Or there's a couple other things I've gotten a chance to work with, and hopefully they'll continue to grow. And I don't know, I just think you should make the world feel better, hopefully, if you can. And I know it's not for everybody, but I've been very lucky and very fortunate to have those moments of true fulfillment when you feel like you've made somebody's day. And that's just, that's a really cool thing.
All right, man.
Love that answer.
Entertaining folks is what you do. You certainly entertained us and all our viewers. Pat McAfee, thanks so much. We appreciate it. The modern media man from Pittsburgh. Last thoughts for these guys. Anything you want to throw out at them before we say goodbye?
How come? I was bombing balls. I was at that camp, staying in your shitty dorms. Sorry about that. I went to that camp all 3 days, kicked great balls. I thought you guys liked me. What happened, Tom? What happened?
I don't make all those decisions.
Oh, okay. Passing the buck. Look at that,
I'm not passing.
the buck.
Well, okay.
Pass the
I have
buck.
your number. I'll call you after the show.
No, I'm joking. I'm very lucky and thankful you guys had me on here. I obviously, the only college football game I went to as a child was up there in Happy Valley. I think I saw Arrington jump over the line. I was at that game.
Yeah,
up in
Illinois.
Yeah, Illinois.
With one of my friends from Plum, who was a diehard Penn State alum. A lot of people in my high school are obviously a part of the Penn State cult that you guys have going on there. And it would have been cool to be a part. Lucky that I have a lot of friends that are a part of it, and it all worked out for all of us. So I appreciate the hell out of you guys for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot.
Pat, I was just glad to tee it up for you. And, of course, you crushed it, dude. You kicked it right through. So well done, man. Thanks again, and appreciate the hustle and grind. You know, I got a couple of parents that are entrepreneurs, and we appreciate that. I mean, you don't get to the success level that you're at in anything that you're doing without grinding and hustling and outworking everybody involved. So thanks again for your time. We appreciate it.
Hey, I'm a Pittsburgh guy. That is, I'm very lucky that I was born and raised in such a city where work ethic is appreciated, expected, and understood. And hopefully that'll continue. Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
Pat.
you.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Pat.
Take care, man.